2, 1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest and purest expression of love is sacrifice, making painful and difficult decisions that we otherwise might not want to do, and what we and our child otherwise might not be able to see at a particular point in time, precisely because of that level of maturity, precisely because of all of those emotional sensitivities. A mother's love begins at conception and is never ending. In a perfect world, absent of this info slide and debate that we're talking about, everything can work out fine and you can be born into this world and live happily ever after. But ladies and gentlemen, the world we live in today is far from it. The world is in ruin and in shambles. It has long been this way, it currently is this way, and is likely to remain that way in the future. And we believe that the mother has to make that ultimate sacrifice for herself and for the child in order for it to be better for them, for her, and for the world. We on opposition tell you that on both sides, life is going to be terrible and that sacrifices at some point have to be made. But we believe that on our choice, the exercise of our decision to be able to make that decision which affects us and our child actually happen on our own terms, wherein we're able to actually choose when we're actually going to end, and as a consequence are able to liberate the rest of the world. Why? Because absent this choice that you take upon yourself, it's very likely that the world and society are going to take for you. It's not just about backlash like people bitching and complaining on social media. It's literally about the doctors and the rest of the world being able to take your mother away because she is an enemy of the state and she has literally damned the entire world, just like what Adam and Eve did in Christianity. And we think that of course has a spillover effect on you because you are the hope and you are the future. And given that society and people have a very utilitarian metric to be able to want to survive absent of morality, they're going to use those levers to be able to take your mother and take your child against you. That is to say, we on side opposition believe that choosing to sacrifice yourself and your child by extension is for the greater good, even if your child does not consent, even if your child might not like it, in order to be able to allow them to be spared when you choose to die and you choose to be able to be sacrificed in your own terms, as opposed to you being stripped away, which happens in the future. But sure, even if none of that happens, we think there is so much guilt, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't mean guilt because of some societal expectation, but also guilt in terms of shame, because you as a mother made that selfish choice to do in the short term what might make you happy, but what might not necessarily be best for your child. The lens we want to question is very simple. We question the quality of life that the child will have on-side government when they come into this world. Because yes, there's nothing wrong with that child, but exactly the point at which they're going to be thrown into this shit show is exactly the point in which they're likely to be wrecked by it, eaten by the system, as they say. We think that any form of them to be able to change or do something is probably moot. Why? Because the solution is already there. It's in your blood. The antidote to cure the entirety of the world's problems, whether that be poverty, whether that be greed, whether that be suffering, whether that be death, is ultimately going to be in your blood and in your own hands. And we believe that the mother has every right to be able to liberate you from all these things, as opposed to that being dictated upon you when you enter that world. Sure, I'll take a POI. Go for it. Absolutely. We think that mothers make that decision every day at the point in which they choose to terminate a stillborn or not bring a child who has certain deformities or a very low chance of survival into this world. It's very painful. Miscarriages, etc., choosing to get an abortion, it hurts. On both sides there is pain, but at least there is some sort of way to be able to define that pain for your greater good in the future. Because I said it's 25%, 75%, meaning 25%, of course, the mother does not want to live in a shitty world, and she has her own proximate selfish interest for her own survival, meaning in the future, she can still choose to be a mother again and have a second child, while always remembering that their initial child who had to be sacrificed or had to be saved in order order for that hope to come for herself and her future family. But let's say the 75%, what happens to the child? That child is going to be remembered, as opposed to on your side, wherein it's not just backlash. Don't let their side dampen that harm. It's ultimately you being the biggest fucking failure to the world and to of life because your mother made that selfish choice. Yes, that's going to go to the mother, but imagine you as the child being able to see all of that backlash against your mother, even to the point maybe of ridicule, torture, and death, where she's stripped away, and once they found out that you're the cure, they're likely to harm you and strip you away. We think we save those children from that actual capacity, in as much as it's fucked up, in as much as it's painful. What do we prove to you on our side of the house? We bite the bullet and we tell you that the most humane way to be able to die and give the choice agency at that particular point in time is to be able to give consent for the world to be able to allow you to be used in order to save it. Is it going to be painful? Does the child consent? Yes, it's painful. The child may not consent. We're biting that bullet very on, but we think that that's the choice that the mother is able to make insofar as you're still part of her own body and ultimately, they're still ultimately responsible for you. Again, the comparative that their side has to defend is what does that world look like when you enter it? It's likely going to be ultimately damned, and we think when you make that comparative, it's marginally not going to be worth it, and we think that sure, in debate land or in principle as they say, it might seem to like be fine to say, yeah, life, yay, choice, it's all good, we'll fight against this system. But in reality, you just have to question, what is the quality of life going to be? How is the interplay going to like? What will society be able to say? And how is that going to affect that child's ability to live and that mother's ability to be able to live when they understand that they are both implicit in this decision of not saving humanity, not saving themselves, and not saving the future? So, in order to be able to judge this debate, the metrics are very simple. What is the interest of the mother for her own capacity for self-preservation? Minority, but majority of cases, what is the difficult decision the mother has to be able to make for her own child, especially at a point in time they can't understand, especially when they're afraid, especially when they're unsure? We are very proud to stand on side opposition.